How's it going, everyone? It's Holly from Worst One to 1000. Today is December 16th, 2020, and I'm glad you're watching this video. Make sure to subscribe if you like more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video. And we're obviously going to focus on, in this video, what's going on with this nor'easter as of right now. And I'll give my future forecast for this snowstorm as it moves up and along the east coast, just bringing like huge snowfall totals all throughout the Northeast. So let's begin by first taking a look at the radar, and you see that there is just a pretty large swath of heavy rain which extends from Roanoke all the way extending to upstate New York at this point. And in Philadelphia, the snow is either right at your doorstep, it could be just overcast, or it's already snowing for you guys. So this is very interesting to see because we're seeing those snowfall rates go up and we're seeing a lot of heavy snow throughout the area. And now Washington DC is interestingly now starting to get into the mix. So I noticed over the past couple of computer forecast runs that the forecast of the heaviest snow is now leaning more towards the north, because in the past several runs the GFS and the European were more favorable of bringing snow to over a foot of snow towards Philadelphia and up to 8 inches in Washington D.C. However, the computer models are now favoring this low that's currently forming off of the Carolina coast to move a little bit more westward to the point and northward to the point where it's gonna filter in more of that convergent warm air that surrounds the low pressure system, and as a result, Philadelphia and Washington D.C. is going to deal with mixing problems, so where a lot of the time in Washington D.C. it won't even be snow. It's mainly going to be either a mix or just a very cold rain. And it seems like it's already starting in Washington D.C. as you might not experience snow ever again from this system. There is a slight chance as this system moves out and you get the western side. However, it won't be a lot of snow. So pretty much in Washington, D.C., you could say that you're pretty much done for when it comes to any more snowfall, which is a huge change from the forecast, which forecasted more snow in Washington, D.C. And Philadelphia, you're dealing with snow right now, but it's forecasted later tonight that that snow will eventually change over to a mix and more of a rain, which will limit snowfall totals. However, it's still uncertain. I want to say that because if this storm goes a little bit further south than anticipated, then even like a couple miles south than anticipated, we could be talking about several inches more of snow in Philadelphia, because that rain snow line is that detrimental to the snowfall forecast for Philadelphia, because just a couple miles south that rain and snow line is, you'll deal with a foot of snow in Philadelphia, or just a little bit more to the north that rain snow line is, you'll deal with less than 3 inches potentially in Philadelphia. So it's going to be a very, very tough forecast. You see, for a lot of the afternoon, Philadelphia is expected to be in the snow, and it's going to snow heavy. So just because you're not in the, let's say, the 12 to 24 inch category or 24 plus inch category in Philadelphia does not mean you won't experience a point in time where the snowfall threat and the danger of the snow will be major, because throughout the afternoon it's just going to snow heavy. And even though it's not going to last as long as the other places, it's still going to snow very heavy right in the heart of rush hour. So do not underestimate this if it isn't raining, if you're only getting 3 to 5 inches in Philadelphia, because again, those 3 to 5 inches of snow will drop down fast over the next several hours. And just taking a look at the radar right now, you see the heavy snowfall bands are right at your doorstep in Philadelphia. Baltimore is already experiencing it. Germantown, Maryland, and Frederick, Maryland is already experiencing that heavy snowfall. You see a lot of dark blues extending all through Virginia and going up northward all the way to Pennsylvania, where even Pittsburgh is getting into some of the heavy snow. So this is interesting to watch for Philadelphia. And like I said, do not underestimate it. Just because you're getting potentially 3 to 5 inches of snow, it could easily change, because with any slight variation within several miles of this low pressure track that's currently off the coast of North the Carolinas. So you see that Lynchburg is under very heavy snow, but now it's starting to get into the mixing. This low pressure is currently off the coast of the Carolinas. So originally the low pressure was located in this area. However, since just enough cold air filtered in to this area over the ocean, and since that cold air has is bringing a lot more unstable air to the ocean rather than on land. That means a new low pressure pretty much formed in this area, as the low pressure essentially jumped from here all the way to here, and this low pressure system is expected to strengthen as it moves up northward, as it encounters more cold air, which will enhance that unstable air, and as a result, that snow will extend all the way to the New England and New Jersey. So as for New Jersey, for most of New Jersey, you're out of the snowfall as of right now. However, interestingly, southwestern Jersey is under snow right now, and this area was initially expected to get less than 1 inch of snow right around here, and it's snowing for you guys. So I'm not sure if the radar is 100% accurate, because I know there are times when the radar says it's snowing, but really it's sleet or a mix. However, the fact that we're seeing the snow line dip a little bit further south than what the computer models and a lot of the snowfall forecast anticipated could potentially mean that that rain snow line might be a little bit more southwestward than expected. We just have to wait and see if that's correct, if that is true over the next several hours. But that's an interesting note to take. That's an interesting way to take notes. So throughout Pennsylvania, you see that there's heavy snow extending to Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and throughout New Jersey, you're just seeing a lot of snow around your doorstep. The snow should begin, I would say, around New York City, probably around 2 to 3 o'clock. It might start as overcast a little bit, but it'll quickly start snowing as the dew points drop and along with the temperature. So definitely in New York City, time is running out for you guys to prepare. You literally only have probably less than 3 hours to get ready for this storm, because like I said, it's right at your doorstep. And throughout New England, it should come obviously later, because obviously the storm is moving from south to north. So I would say in Hartford, Connecticut, expect snowfall right around 7 o'clock at night, maybe a little earlier than that. And then Boston should start to see snow right around 8 to 9 o'clock tonight. So watch out for that. And it's just going to be a big snowstorm for you guys. So here's my updated forecast from my last video. So obviously, since the forecast models adjusted a little bit more and they really got a feel for the storm one day out, I shifted my snowfall forecast, I would say drastically for some reasons, because in southeast, I had some snow in southeastern Jersey. Now I just expect cold rain for southeastern Jersey, as it's pretty much inevitable at this point. You guys, it'll mainly be a rain event for you guys. And then you see the I-95 corridor, I would say beginning from New York all the way down to Washington, D.C. is just going to be a very close call. However, at this point, I would say it's definitely very unlikely Washington, D.C. will receive anything more than maybe like 3 inches of snow from this storm, because at this point, since we're only several hours out and we're already seeing the mixing occur in Washington, D.C. as radar is suggests, that means that it's just going to be very unlikely there's going to be a huge margin of error within the next several hours that would bring that heavier snowfall down to Washington, D.C. So if you're hoping for snow in Washington, D.C., I wouldn't hold your breath on it, because it seems too unlikely you guys are going to get major snowfall from this. And I would say maybe like 1 to 3 inches for Washington, D.C. is most likely. And then for Philadelphia, I still think it's going to be pretty close for you guys. Depends where that rain and snow line is going into tonight, because like I said, if it's just a little, just enough far south, you could experience over a foot of snow, and you see how big that gap changes. Just a couple miles northwest of Philadelphia, you're experiencing 12 to 24 inches of snow, which is over a foot. And then if you go just several miles southeast of Philadelphia, it's gonna be just plain rain. So that's gonna be a huge thing to watch over the next several hours, because you could either experience maybe a foot of snow or 3 inches of snow. I would say a foot of snow is unlikely. However, I would say that less than 3 inches of snow is less than an inch of snow is unlikely at two. However, there could be that chance that if Philadelphia stays in that snow enough, I definitely wouldn't be surprised if you could experience up to 8 inches of snow, which is still considered a major snowstorm for a lot of people. So just because you're in the 12-inch category does not in the 12-inch snowfall category does not mean you won't experience potentially a major snowstorm in Philadelphia. And I also think even as far north as New York, it could be interesting, especially late overnight tonight, because New York City, there's that possibility that New York City could be in the vicinity of that rain snow line as a low pressure system comes close in proximity to New York City. And that will be interesting to see, because if this moves just far north enough, that could vastly limit the snowfall forecast for New York City. Well, I wouldn't say vastly, but it could definitely lower it more to maybe the 5 to 8 inch category rather than the 12 to 24 I'm predicting. So we just have to wait and see how far north or south the lower pressure system goes, but it just seems just very close. It's gonna seem very close for New York City. However, I would say for New York City, I'm not saying that there's a possibility that you're gonna get less than 3 inches of snow, because I think that's inevitable. However, I think that if this just goes far north enough, there is that chance that you might only get as low as 5. I wouldn't say 5, but maybe 6 inches of snow from this. So, however, that's still a pretty big snowstorm for New York City. So I would say prepare as if you're getting ready for a foot of snow, because that's still the forecast at this point, and I want to emphasize that for New York City. However, just northwest of that, it's pretty much inevitable you're gonna see a major snowfall threat all throughout the Northeast, with maybe up to and over 2 feet of snow in the Pocono Mountains and extending to Catskill Mountains, as it's just going to be the worst of the snow here. And that's for two reasons. One is obviously the higher elevations. They're in the higher elevations, and in the higher elevations of the mountains, a lot of that air is forced aloft, and a lot of that warm, humid air is forced to ascend into the atmosphere. And as a result of that, as a result of how much humid air is going upwards, there's a lot of condensation that occurs in the mountains, and a lot more condensation means a lot more precipitation throughout the upper elevations of the Pocono Mountains and the Catskill Mountains. So up to 24 inches are expected as a result of that. And also, there seems to be an agreement with the computer models that this will be sort of the convergent zone, where a lot of that warm, humid air that the low pressure is trying to filter in to the northeast will converge with the cold Arctic Canadian high air that the Canadian high is trying to pull southward. And as the warm, humid air and the cold Arctic air converge in this convergent zone, a lot of that humid air is gonna be forced to ascend, and as a result of all that upward motion in the atmosphere, in the mid levels and the lower levels of the atmosphere, a lot more condensation, precipitation, and convection is expected in this area, which is why I do expect over 2 feet of snow in the Catskills and extending as far south as the Pocono Mountains. And throughout northern New Jersey, where I'm at, 12 to 24 inches are expected. I think it's more likely going to be in the lower end, but with these forecasts, I like to be I like to extend my range because I don't want to really get anything potentially wrong with these forecasts. Because with such a small range, I want to sort of broaden the range of snowfall totals, unlike other like forecasters, because I just want to make sure that the forecast, no matter what it is correct, and I don't want to be too inaccurate with such a small range and margin of error. So I choose 12 to 24 because there could be localized areas that could receive over 20 inches of snow throughout the Northeast, and then 6 to 12 just outside of that, 3 to 6 in western Pennsylvania, 1 to 3 throughout Ohio, and it's just going to be a major snowfall threat for a lot of you guys. So, however, that won't be the only threat. So, while Southeast Jersey and a lot of pretty much all the Delmarva Peninsula will experience rain from this, it won't be all. It won't be that. It's not that it's going to be that bad in those regions, because it definitely is going to be bad in terms of the wind and the coastal flooding threat. So let's take a look at the current wind forecast for you guys along the Delmarva coast and the Jersey coast. And you see the oranges, the greens. The greens extend the Delmarva Peninsula, and that's around 30 knot winds right there, sustained, not gust sustained. So, which is equivalent to like 35-mile-per-hour winds along the coast and throughout the Delmarva Peninsula. And wind gusts could exceed over 60 miles per hour along the coast, and maybe 50 in New York City, the New York City metropolitan area. And this extends to New England as well, where you could experience even more snow from this. Even more wind from this, especially in Nantucket, where you could experience over 60 to maybe 70 mile per hour winds. And throughout Boston, it's going to be windy. It's going to be near blizzard conditions throughout the Northeast as a result of this. And because of this wind, coastal flood warnings are in effect throughout the coast of New Jersey and Delmarva Peninsula, as you could see 1 to 3 foot snow storm surge in some areas, especially in the low-lying coastlines of New Jersey and the Delmarva Peninsula, and definitely in Long Island and Boston. Definitely be prepared for beach erosion and potential coastal flooding in the low-lying areas. So let's take a look at the forecast map again, and I want to emphasize that now New England is now in the heavy snowfall, because in the past several days the forecast models were less lenient on bringing heavy snowfall throughout New England. However, now Boston's in the 12 to 24 inch category, even southern Vermont, New Hampshire, as this storm extends far up north to New England, which now includes Vermont's New Hampshire and Maine and even Rhode Island and Connecticut. So this will be a major New England threat as well, and it's just gonna pound the Northeast entirely this week. So I guess that's it for this video, guys. I thank you guys for watching. I will update you guys later, maybe out on the field or doing another forecast like this, so stay tuned for that. And I hope you guys have a good day, and stay tuned for more update videos. I'm gonna be live out on the field when the snow begins, because it has begun in my area. I live in northern Jersey, so, and over a foot of snow is expected, like this map states. So I'm gonna be out there on the field, so stay tuned for that, because you could see potentially blizzard conditions and snowfall rates in excess of 1 to 2 inches per hour in my area. So stay tuned, and I hope you guys have a good day.